Hello, and welcome back to User Experience Design, Understanding Users in Business. Today we're going to start Section 5, User Journeys, Business Funnels, and Task Development, based on the videos and some of the stuff that we've been doing up to this point in this course. So in this section overview, we're going to really talk about a few things, right? We're going to wrap up this course, but we're also going to, before we get there, we're going to start by understanding how business adds needs to a user journey, right? The needs go into this visualization over time, right? Defining the user's journey. And we'll start by establishing a few steps of what that journey starts to look like, right? We'll write out some logical sequence of what their interactions are, and we'll build a user journey that it makes more sense. Right, we'll build it out in Illustrator, we'll add some steps to the document, we'll add a funnel and user phases, and then we'll finish by reviewing some stuff that we've done up to this point and how UX has improved your business knowledge. So let's get started in Section 5. User experience and interaction through a user journey, solving a user hypothesis. So what we'll end up spending some time in this video and in this section is we're going to take a look at how to take the requirements that we started gathering in the last video section and start applying them into user actions. How do you move from the business wants to require this and the user wants to do something, and into how do you start seeing how that looks like over time? Why product design matters, like how thinking through your requirements and how things are moving around, what is a user journey and how we kind of use them to apply thinking about a product, and apply some of the user journey rules and continue to get excited about moving through and creating a user journey. Now, in the last video section, right, we started to relate and understand that high-level business requirements start to map themselves into a shareable format. We put them into a Google Doc. We have both business requirements, there's user requirements, and this helped us to then push in to start thinking about, well, what can we as user experience designers start building, right? Without a level of requirements, it's like building a house without having all of without knowing what the house is supposed to look like, right? It's like if you don't know the third floor is supposed to have a bathroom, it's very hard at which to do that later, right? But when we relate what UX and UI and product design is attempting to do is we then take what a requirements does. It's a bunch of things that are interested, and we can then push those into things like features, prototypes, websites, and testing. All that stuff goes through a cycle. But it starts sometimes by understanding what is the journey that the user is going to take to accomplish the number of requirements that are gathered in the flow. Now, a user can do things over time and related, and we want to know what that cycle looks like and how that's related. Now, for us, business requirements really allows us as user experience designers to analyze what is worth building first. We learn about a bunch of requirements from our business. Some of them may be hard, some of them may be really easy, some of them may be part of like, user must be able to log in. That happens at the beginning, right? Well, we only know that happens at the beginning because we've translated that. And we start applying these level of requirements into functionality and features based on what we're designing for, based on what's there. If it's an app or if it's a website, all those things start to relate, but we want to know what the broader experience of that user is so that we can then build things into it through prototyping, testing, and iterating. And one thing that is worth noting is that a business will give requirements, but time changes and requirements can change, and nothing is written in stone. There are certain ways at which things work, and they should work that way, but you also want to make sure that your system isn't locking itself into certain decisions if the user changes their mind or if the business has to shift, these other things. Now, you want to make sure that not everything is changing all the time because that can be very maddening, but the relationship of what can be fixed and what can't is part of planning, right? I've mentioned this before, and I'll keep mentioning it as we keep going. Agile allows for the digestion of changed requirements. And if you have planning that goes too long, you then have a harder time at which to adapt to those changes, right? Agile development says like, okay, we have some requirements, we can design really quickly, and those then can adapt quickly to those level of changes when they occur or when they're there. Now, there's technical requirements, there's what the user is trying to do, there's also specifications of how the tech works. And if you know, like anything else, the tech world moves really quickly, and sometimes you'll be considering it for one format, but it needs to be on the new best phone. That may change some requirement as it happens. Now, hardware, software, all these things are adaptable because human beings want to use them, and we want to make sure that it doesn't cost us too much and that it doesn't take too long to accomplish. Now, when we're relating this, right, we started thinking about a story. The story was broadcast through our requirements relationship, right? We helped either our client or us to even kind of put them into sentences that made sense so that we could relate who we're designing for, what their task is, and what they're trying to achieve. And these kind of business relationships can be put into a hierarchy, right? You can establish which one is first, which one happens second, and that's what designing a user journey starts to help us see, right? We can understand the tasks inside what a user is doing through a broader time cycle. Now, there's many types of journeys that we can relate, but really common ones are like awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, and advocacy. Now, this is a standard marketing funnel model that the phases along those points, but at each of those phases have different tasks the user might engage in that have links back to the requirements of your product or service. Now, a user journey is essentially a sequence of steps which represents a scenario in which a user might interact with a product or service inside that relationship, inside that broader experience of the funnel. And there's many ways in which to visualize a journey. There's circles, there's paths, there are lines that just kind of indicate all of the pages. And the way in which you visualize how a user moves through the steps can actually help in the product team understanding where your user is along their cycle, can understand what requirements have to happen at what point, and can also help an organization wrap their head around the system that they're designing for. Whether it's marketing or a product or a service, however that is, you can see where different teams are involved with different outputs and how that is related. And a larger journey map can actually get everybody on the same page in that output, understanding technology and what your goals are, how those KPIs are being met, etc. So let's get excited, and what we're going to do is we're going to continue our journey and learn more about the business output, because what we're trying to do is improve the story and make great UX out of those stories. Because user experience design helps our users move through a journey that could make them heroes in their use of their product, their website, or their service.